Hi there and welcome. My name is Sharon and others know me as Itu. Today I want to share with you some information that is a bit different but useful, and that is how to discern character, destiny, or just basically what your interaction will be like with a certain person just by using their name. This can be useful for you when choosing a partner, whether it's in business or in life, a friend, or even determining or deciding on a service provider or naming a child. This always works for me, and I know that it will work for you too. I will be sharing with you exactly how to do this, and it's all biblical, so please stay tuned for that. So if we look at the Bible, you might have noticed that there are various people in there that had name changes. And there are various reasons for this. For example, Jacob turned into Israel, Abraham turns into Abraham, Sarai turns into Sarah. Who else? Peter became Peter the Rock. I actually forgot what his old name was. So basically those name changes occurred because God changed their destinies and God changed their characters. If we look at the Bible in Genesis 32 verse 24, I believe it's about 28, we read of how Jacob turned into Israel. And the reason for that is that Jacob basically means he who takes by the heel, he who deals craftily, or basically a thief. So when his name changed to Israel, that was symbolic of the change of his character and the change of his destiny. The name Israel actually means God prevails. Throughout scripture, you'll find similar themes where people's names are changed once they encounter God. Another great example of this is when Saul became Paul, who became a great follower of Christ Jesus, or a great disciple of God. This really should show you or point to you how important a name is. And of course, if you are from an African family, you might have been given the name of a grandmother, a great aunt, or something like that. And I'm speaking from the perspective of someone who received the name of my late grandmother, who my dad loved dearly. And I can really say that I have experienced things in my life that I know that she experienced herself, because I've heard many stories about her. And I can also say that in terms of my character and my nature, there are various similarities that I have that I know she has because of what people say. And this can be both negative and positive, which is the sad part. We don't choose our names. I got so much from that name, and I'm still getting so much from that name, that I shy away from using that name. In fact, only my father calls me by that name because it has such sentimental value for him. I shy away from using that name because of what it would mean for me and my life's direction and life's path. And it's very easy for me to do because I have 3 names.
What be your name?
My name na Kwaza Waza Kwakwikwa Kwaza. Zabulaza.
What?
But if, unlike me, you've only been given that one name, and that name is your grandmother's or your grandfather's or that great aunt, or you've been given a name that you dislike, please stay tuned until the end of the video, because I will be sharing some useful information as to how you can deal with this. There is a way that you can bypass this.
So what is your name?
My name?
Yes, your name.
My name na Ovuvwe Enyetuenwe Ugbemugwem Osas.
Pardon? Come again.
Ovuvwe Enyetuenwe Ugbemugwem Osas.
Okay, so this is how you can discern a person's character or destiny or life path. There are 3 ways that I'm going to discuss, so listen closely. The first one is by the literal meaning of the name. Just like the example I gave with Jacob turning into Israel, we see that Jacob really meant something negative, but God changed it into something positive. And I would like to give an example of a name that has been popular in the past few weeks here in my country, and that is a young man called Sazi Bongwe. So this young man did so well in his matric results, and he actually got a scholarship to go study at Harvard. So if I'm not mistaken, that is a first for us in our country, for someone to get a scholarship to study at Harvard. According to Google, the name Sazi means a person full of knowledge who knows more than a wise man. That's according to the Xhosa definition. The next way is to use character references by looking at people with the same name. And this can be people in your own life or on a global scale. For example, my name is Sharon, and there are other Sharons in the world. If you think of the one Sharon that you've maybe heard of, and I'm sure you have heard of another Sharon, or you've dealt with another Sharon, you can maybe identify something similar between me and that other Sharon. This doesn't mean that that person will have exactly the same character traits or life destination or life path, but it does point you to how your interaction will be with that person. For example, if you know another Sharon and you had a let's say positive. Let's say you had a positive interaction with this other Sharon, and then you wonder, should I subscribe to this Sharon's channel? You might actually want to subscribe to this Sharon's channel because of the experience that you had with the other Sharon that was positive and helpful. This works very well if you know the other namesake or the other person personally. For example, if you know that other Sharon intimately and you've spent a lot of time with them and you know a lot about them, that could actually be more helpful for you. Let me give you another example. Let's say I'm actually going to use a personal experience for this. I was looking for a service provider. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to use a different name. I'm going to say Sarah. With this service provider, I wasn't told upfront who I would be dealing with. I only found out when I was at the desk. If I had known before, I would of course been able to avoid this whole situation because of what I know, but here goes. I went there looking for a specific service, and I get there and I find out, oh, I'm dealing with a Sarah. I look back at my experience with a Sarah in my life before, and that experience was not positive. It was very negative. And so I can almost tell, and in fact I did know by the time I was at the front desk, that it wouldn't be a good outcome. But it was too late to turn back. So I continued on, and lo and behold, it was a negative experience, just like I thought it would be. And had I known this person's name beforehand, I would have been able to save my money and avoid the whole situation. Another example. So in my country, in the past few months, there's been this cop turned serial killer lady called Rosemary. If you look or search for people with the name of Rosemary, you would come up with, yes, this Rosemary who was Rosemary Ndlovu on the internet. But there is also another Rosemary who was a serial killer as well. Do you see the correlation there? Like two Rosemarys, both serial killers. And I'm not saying that if your name is Rosemary that you are automatically a serial killer. I'm just trying to point out how accurate this thing is. And then thirdly, you can get people with similar sounding names. I'm going to use another personal example, but this time it wasn't me, it was someone I know. So there's this family member. that dated a young lady by a certain name for the sake of this video. I will say that name was Chantel. It wasn't actually Chantel, by the way. I love Chantels. So he dated a Chantel. That experience was negative, very negative. He moves on with his life. And then suddenly there comes another girl by the name of not Chantel, but Shantae. So if this is you and you are experiencing this in your own life, you've been with someone and then now you try to move on, but it's with someone with a similar name, I feel like that is self-explanatory, but you understand where I'm going with this. And like I said, I cannot emphasize this enough. Whichever one of these three methods you choose to use, it does not mean that your experience will be exactly the same, that the people will have exactly the same life experiences, journeys, destinies, whatever else. It just points to similarities at most, and at the very least, it points you to how that interaction will go, whether you will have a positive outcome or a negative outcome. Now, if like me, you have been given a name that doesn't necessarily point to something positive, for example, in my country, there's this name Matlakala, which I do not understand why a parent would want to name their child Matlakala. By the way, Matlakala means trash, and people are named that literally in my country. So if you have like a name that you don't like the meaning of, or will point to something negative, there is a way to change it. And you don't just change your name, by the way. In the Bible, we have seen the name changes, and each and every one of those name changes have been affected by God. And so what do we do as well? We go to God and ask Him to change our names for us. And in fact, if you do not know which name to go to, He will tell you that as well. Like my two other names are very good. Sharon, which is the one I can identify most with when it comes to my faith walk, because it is in the Bible. And the other one, Itu, which is short for Itu Meleng, is also a very positive name. I didn't really need a name change. All I did was just shy away from using my third name. But God did, in fact, tell me another name, and He did this through my dreams. If you have time, check out the few videos that I have on this channel regarding dream interpretation and so on. If you go and watch those videos on dream interpretation, you'll get the whole bigger picture. But I went and I researched what this name meant, and it was very touching for me. It pointed me to the right direction. So this is possible if you want it. All you have to do is go to God and ask. And this doesn't necessarily mean that your name will change legally. It doesn't have to be like that. And for this, I want to point you to another Bible name. So this person's name was Jabez. Jabez basically means sorrowful or sorrow. And let me just open up quickly. 1 Chronicles 4 verse 9 to 10. Let me just read it out. Now Jabez was more honorable than his brothers. His mother had named him Jabez, saying, because I bore him in pain. And Jabez called out to the God of Israel, if only you would bless me and enlarge my territory. May your hand be with me and keep me from harm. Emphasis on that, so that I will be free from pain. And God granted the request of Jabez. So there we see like a bit of a different scenario where the person's name did not change, but God did change that person's destiny. So Jabez stayed Jabez even though his name means sorrowful, but God did change his destiny and his future. So if your name means something negative but you still like it, you can still keep it. Only just find out what God's plan is for you and your life's purpose. That's it. I hope that this was helpful for you, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.